Breaking news.
Wow.
Davante Adams has requested a trade. From what I have heard from some of my Raiders buddies and from some people that I know that are scouts in the community, is that there is a little bit of some animosity that was happening before and after, this and that, and the offseason he wasn't too happy about things, and that, those are all just rumors, right? But when we really settle on the other side of this, it came out today that the Raiders were shopping or fielding calls for Davante Adams. And then a couple hours later, he officially requested a trade. So is he unhappy? Does he want to get back with Aaron Rodgers and be on the Jets? Like, what exactly, gentlemen, do we think is going on in this situation? Because there's smoke, there's fire, and it's not like I didn't say this in the tweet and got clowned for it before.
I was about to say multiple of us said it on this panel, or not multiple. All of us said it on this panel at least multiple times.
Go ahead.
Shout out to the Raider fans in the chat. So last I saw, the betting odds were the top four were obviously, Jets led at number 1, then the Chiefs at number 2, Ravens, then Bills. I think a lot of this is, and I think Graph put it best on Twitter. Graph, if you are watching this later, or if anybody sends this over to Graph, shout out to him. The downfall of the Raiders so far this season has been social media and like Instagram. Because you look at the drama between Antonio Pierce and Davante Adams of all the, liking posts of Antonio Pierce might be gone or Davante Adams might be gone. And it's the other liking that post like, yeah, I agree. Which usually when that happens with the player, again, when there's smoke, there's fire. So you've got your star receiver, Davante Adams, being like, here's hoping like new odds of a Raider coach whenever Antonio Pierce gets the can or vice versa. Like here are odds of Davante Adams might be leaving. And then you got your head coach liking that. So it's been an entirety of a mess, but we kind of thought that this was, or not kind of thought, we knew that this was going to happen in the offseason. It was only going to take up until like the first quarter of the season, before the trade line to see what was happening. Like if the Raiders somehow went undefeated, maybe not. But if they were about around 2-2, 1-3, yeah, you could definitely see the Raiders were getting ready to just move on from Adams, and also that Adams was just ready to be moved on from.
I got a couple things that I wanted to throw in there, and this is just addressing some of the fans first, and then I'm gonna get into what my feelings is. First thing I'll say with this whole thing is that I thought that this was going to be a possibility before the trade deadline, because if you look at that team top to bottom, I was being hopeful that they would go 8-9, and they had the talent to do it. But the way that they've showed out in some of these games is they're really teetering on the brink of a 6-win season. But
wait, Khalid, wasn't that exactly what you and I predicted, a 6-win season? And then we were called clowns in the Dante, you talk. Lee and I are gonna go back to that video real quick.
Oh yeah, we got receipts that are longer than Santa Claus's wish list.
I'm just gonna send a sticker under all those comments.
Let's see. AFC West, Las Vegas, 5-12 is what I had them going.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Let's address the fans first. And this is just not Raiders fans. This goes for any single fan that hears the news of a good player requesting a trade. A lot of people like to say, good, get rid of him, scram. You don't need to be here. I don't know why people need to think like an organization. If he's a good player, why don't we address him as a good player, noticing that he was a key to our team having success, whatever success we've had over the years, has it been attributed to some of the times that he came in and did what he was supposed to do, even after Derek Carr had left, right? But just to be like, get out of here if you don't want to be part of this team, it's not about that. Maybe he's seen, nobody really knows what's going through Davante Adams' brain right now, and nobody really knows the situation. Maybe he wants to be a Raider, and the Raiders are saying, we got to do what we got to do to contain our team and have them be contenders in the future, right? There's a lot of different factors in here, and maybe the writing was on the wall where we're going to shop you around. And then Davante was like, well, I guess you guys want to shop me around, so I don't need to be here. Actually, I request a trade back to your response of that you're fielding calls from me. How about that? You know, nobody really knows, but to me, it's just out of like, it's out of a bad term when, to me, when a player that's done everything he can to contribute to your team. I mean, he wanted to be there, of course, because Derek Carr was there, and then you ship out Derek Carr. So, and then he continues to stay and continues to perform, and he's had the healthiest career that he could have had with the Raiders so far. I mean, he hasn't really been hurt like he was with the Packers. So you've gotten a fairly healthy Davante Adams up until this year. I just don't understand the mentality of like, get him out of here. If he doesn't want to be on the team, just get out of here. Like, appreciate what you had with the guy, because at the end of the day, let's say that all this news comes out and he only requested a trade because they were shopping him around. They didn't want to be there to support him being there. Then it makes everybody seem very sour in this situation. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like a player that contribute for him to go. That's why guys like when Miles Jack got released from the Jaguars, I was like, oh my gosh, why would we release a dude that's had so much production for us? You know what I'm saying? Or Zay Jones. That you guys remember in the offseason when we were releasing Zay Jones and just let him walk, we were like, what the hell is going on? Why would we get rid of Zay Jones, who's been a third down beast for the Jaguars? So I just want to address that part. And then the second part of my little rant here is, you can't tell me, I'm going to just quote my tweet that I got hated for. With all the movement that is going on with the Raiders, that you can't sit back and think with a right mind and say, damn, Derek Carr is not here. They got rid of Josh Jacobs. I really don't have a piece here that makes me feel comfortable with being in this quarterback situation. Man, I'd rather go play with Aaron Rodgers right now because he needs a veteran out there. Garrett Wilson seems like the guy, but dang, it would be cool to play with a young guy like Garrett Wilson and show him what I could give back to him as well in that offense. Like, that was all my tweet was about. And that you could get more draft compensation from a guy like Davante Adams than just to sit here and sulk on a 6-win season that you guys are about to have and say, oh, we wasted the potential of a Davante Adams. Production is production at the end of the day. I don't know, man. I feel personally like this is a very complicated situation, and everybody at the end of the day should just be happy regardless that they had a Davante Adams on their team that produced every single year. And wish him good luck wherever he goes. But this mentality of like, F this dude, get him off my team is like, why would you guys have a young quarterback that's gonna need a Davante Adams, and he's not gonna have that now because Jacoby Myers was the number one guy for the Patriots and it didn't work out. You need a veteran presence in that locker room, and you're going to take away the only guy that's a superstar in that offense away from that. And I don't necessarily trust the fact. Now, Khalid, let me ask you a question. I'll let you rip. But would you rather have a bunch of mediocre players?
Never mind.
A bunch of mid players on your team, right? And you guys are barely making the playoffs? Or would you rather have 3 or 4 superstars on your offense, i.e. like the Eagles, that are going to help your positional rooms out across the board and could get you to another level? Like, I don't understand. I heard somebody say that I'd rather have a bunch of mediocre players that barely get us there and not a Davante Adams. I I don't trust
No,
that. I don't like that logic.
I disagree. Yeah, I'm with you there. I'd rather have dudes. Now, look, if you're if you're trying to win, right? The ultimate goal every year, you want to win a Super Bowl. Maybe for some teams it's not realistic, right? Like the Raiders this year, that's not realistic, winning the Super Bowl. But your goal every year is to win. Does having Davante Adams or does not having Davante Adams on your team give you the best chance to win? It's probably going to be having him on your team. However, sometimes priorities, goals, they can shift during the middle of the season. At least in my opinion, it doesn't. And I mean, again, I had them going 5-12 before the season. I never thought they were going to truly compete, like be competitive in the league. It can make sense, right?
Yep.
I wouldn't say that they're better for it or that I would necessarily want it, but it makes sense, right? You have a player who is incredible, one of the best at his position, who's expensive, right? One of the bigger contracts at his position. And if you can acquire draft capital and or players on good value contracts who can contribute, then yeah, like it'll make sense from a financial standpoint and a roster building standpoint to have those players there, right? Because it's not just subtraction, right? You are gaining something. But I think that if your goal is to win, you are still better off with Davante Adams. So for anyone who's, I guess, like justifying the decision by saying, "Oh, we'll be fine without him. We don't need him." I think that's just a coping mechanism, coping with the fact that their star players can be leaving. And like I'm not saying that's like bash any Raiders fans who that's where they're at. Like, I mean, everyone does it, right? For their team. It's like, oh, we don't need them. I mean, A&M fans, when all those players transferred in the transfer portal this summer, like, oh, we don't need them. Like, we'll be fine. And it's like, well,
we didn't need Evan Stewart.
Right. It's like, we may be fine in the long run, but you can't tell me that we wouldn't be better if they didn't leave, right? Like, yeah, Raiders fans, you're going to be fine. Your team is going to be fine, but you can't convince me that your team is going to be better in the here and now if you trade him, right? Especially with the way that the Raiders have drafted over the last few years, especially with high draft picks.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily know if I trust that. I know that there's been some changes in the front office, but it makes me so kind of worried that the compensation that they get in return for Davante Adams in a potential trade may not be spent very well. But things can change. I'm not going to judge them on something that hasn't happened yet. I'm just kind of at a point where it makes sense to trade Davante Adams. You get that off your payroll. You get some compensation while you can, especially for someone who doesn't want to be here. It's better than letting him go for free, but you can't tell me that they're going to be a better team after they trade him.
It's good. I just want to address a couple of things. It's going to take more than Tay Adams to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, but like
that's what I was about to address as well.
It's not like your team is Super Bowl ready anyways. The only people that really thought that you guys had a chance to go deep in the playoffs are people that are delusional about any of their teams. And they really need to sit down there, just like I had to do, just like 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝘀 had to do with the Eagles, and really evaluate, like, on paper, are we really good, or are we just projecting somebody's value onto a player because we've seen spurts out of them, like a Trey Tucker or the whole Zeus thing. Zamir White, just because he's in the locker in the weight room getting big as shit for a running back does not necessarily translate on the field that he's going to be this beast. But that's what we do in the offseason. And on our channel, we take the opposite approach. We look at the factor, what is this guy's skill set? What is his ceiling or what is his floor can be every single season? What did he do in college? How does he fit with the team? What is his running style? What does that offensive line look like? These are the things before we make record predictions. We don't look at it from a fan's perspective. We look at it from the top to bottom and what statistically and with our eyes are visually and on the film that makes sense to us. So the only people that are upset about this are the people that overvalued their team in the first place. And that you go in there with false hope about your team. This is what you come out with, is disappointment and people getting traded away from your team. So it's absolutely, you have to look at it like this. Now, what's going to kick yourself in reality is if Davante Adams goes to a team and elevates them more to a team that was let's say an 8-win team to a 10-win team, making the playoffs and being an underdog in the playoffs and being into a Super Bowl. That's what's going to be sour grapes, because this is what a Davante Adams can do. What happens, and Khalid's played ball, I've played ball, Sora's coach, I've coached, like, what happens is that great players can elevate other players just from people watching how they are and asking questions. There's nothing more valuable for a young kid is to ask the question of Davante Adams, like, man, I'm really struggling to keep my feet in bounds to Tony toe tapping the ball. How do you do it? How do you block out everything and make that catch? Like, my hands are good enough, but my feet, my brain and my feet don't match up. That's the thing that I don't think people understand. He's not there to be a teacher. That's not his job. But him being in a wide receiver room and people seeing it on a daily basis of how he practices and how good he is elevates your team more. So you can't tell me at the end of the day that if Davante Adams wasn't on the Jets, if Davante Adams didn't go back to the Packers, for example, with a Jaden Reed.
And that's what I was this is what I was looking up originally, but they just don't have the cap space for it. But, you know, the whole reason why he went to the Raiders in the first place is to be with his friend Derek Carr. And we talk about, like, the young guy of Garrett Wilson. You've got the young guy over at the Saints with Chris Olave and you know, Rashid Shaheed,
and then you got a homie from Wake Forest, A.T. Perry.
Perry. So you've got 3 young guys there. You're back with your best friend, which is the whole reason you left Green Bay, was to go play with Derek Carr. That didn't work out. Granted, yes, coaching may still be an issue, but you got a good running back rotation between Kamara and Williams. And so, you know, granted, they don't have the cap space to do it. I'm not saying that he's going to the Saints, but, you know, that also would be the ideal situation. And also, you know, for like World Wide Web that you were talking, I knew Jeff would be excited about that. But, you know, and I'm just asking, like, yes, I know Crosby's missing games. They're tanking already. The one gripe that I have with they are tanking, they being the Raiders are tanking already, is, do you really think in the first true year that Antonio Pierce has, he's allowed to tank and still keep his job next year? That's my only gripe. Like, I don't know. To me, for being the interim coach now, and this is your first full year, and 4 games in, we're already talking about, like, tanking 4 games in our first year as a head coach. That's calls for termination right there.
That's nasty work.
I don't see how AP could keep a job if they do tank.
Hey, Khalid, I'm gonna let you close this out, but I just want to address one thing. Adams to the Chargers would be interesting, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And I was thinking through a scenario. What is the trade that happens all the time with players? They get traded in the division. I don't know why it happens or how it happens, but that's just how it goes. Most of the time, they get traded in their division. Let's look at the teams in the Raiders division. Let's go through the top to bottom. Chiefs. Who did they just lose?
Rashid Rice and Hollywood Brown, and Travis Kelce is not looking the best right now.
And what has Davante Adams not done in his career thus far? Win a Super Bowl.
Won a Super Bowl.
That's very interesting. Now let's go over to the Broncos.
I'm praying that the Raiders don't do this to us. Please think of the 30 other NFL teams. Please.
I'm just thinking about it from an analytical standpoint. Let's go to the Broncos. The Broncos severely need weapons on their team. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to go there and elevate them, but a Courtland Sutton and Davante Adams being on the same team helps open up your offense more than anything else.
And helps elevate your young quarterback bonus. And also, just to get to, before you get to the whole Chargers thing and the Chiefs, it's going to take draft picks. If you traded into the division and you give them to the Chiefs or the Chargers, it's going to be later picks. If you trade them to Denver, more than likely, it's still going to be a low enough of a pick. So that's also something that I feel like you, as the GM for the Raiders, have to think about it. Because, you know, you're breaking them to the Chiefs. More than likely, it's the 32nd pick or the top, like the 28th through 32nd. You know, either the championship game or the Super Bowl. You know, Chargers, late playoff. Broncos,
Yeah, I'm trying to look something up. Okay, so So and here's my other thing with the Broncos, and then we'll move over to the Chargers. The Broncos have who as their coach?
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton.
Okay. Sean Payton has always focused in on Drew Brees to specifically have a number one guy that he throws to a lot. Let's go through the list of wide receivers. Marcus Colston was a multiple-time 1,000-yard receiver. Jimmy Graham, multiple-time Pro Bowler. Most recently, who was it? Michael Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Had like 130 receptions a year under Sean Payton. Do you
And that
think
was in the slot too?
The biggest selling point for somebody like Davante Adams, Sean Payton is going to be like, look, bro, come over here, and I guarantee that we'll design this offense for Bo to throw to you all the time. That's a selling point right there. Then let's go to the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, players coach. Justin Herbert's got a gun. You've
got a good supporting cast. Quentin Johnston's coming out of his shell now. You know, he looks nothing like he did his rookie season. Ladd McConkey is looking like so far one of the best, if not the best, rookie wide receivers in this draft class right now.
They are really just lacking the standout guy because they have a bunch of number twos right now. They don't really have the standout.
Joshua
dude.
Palmer as like a 4.
You go there and elevate those guys. You can't tell me that that offense wouldn't be dangerous. So you got 3 teams that could sell Davante Adams coming over right now in your division. If they threw a whole bunch of money and a bunch of draft capital at the Raiders will be, and this is how teams think, we'll be okay for tanking this season. If we can move up and grab 2 quarterbacks out of this draft, we would. how close can we get? Okay, let's go and talk to these teams. That's how it is, man. But Khalid, go ahead and close this out so we can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, there's for Davante Adams' perspective. I mean, we touched on this, but the number one thing he's probably looking for is winning, right? And we know that he has an affinity for his guys, right? You know, developed that relationship with Aaron Rodgers, went to Las Vegas for Derek Carr. So finding players who he likes, where he can contend for Super Bowls, is probably going to be, points 1A and 1B on his checklist of, does this place check off, check all the boxes? Is this place where I want to go? And, the 2 teams that come to my mind immediately are going back to Green Bay with Jordan Love. I think that wide receiver room, they have some solid players, but they don't have a true alpha. I love Jaden Reed. He had a big game the other night, but imagine having to also deal with Davante Adams in Green Bay again. And the other place that I just thought of right now, Washington. They're in win now mode. Clearly, they are. Jaden Daniels has shown that he's legit. I'll be talking more about him later, but
I'm pretty sure, doesn't he have more touchdowns than incompletions at this point now?
He has more scoring drives that's what it is. Than incompletions thrown this season. He's been incredible.
Shout out to Brian Johnson. Was never the problem.
And your top 2 receivers are.
I'm putting back on the suit.
You go from. You go Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz, right? Zach Ertz is kind of aging, but if you can go out there and get a Davante Adams, do you know how much like he would get open, or how much he would open up the field for Scary Terry or Zach Ertz or these other guys?
I was about to say, who else he could elevate? Luke McCaffrey.
Absolutely. Like if Washington traded for Davante Adams and they have the cap space, if they traded for Davante Adams, Washington would instantly become, with the way that they've been playing so far, their offense is already statistically top 5 in the league.
They're winning the division. If they got Davante Adams, they'd win the division.
I think that would make them instantly favorites for the NFC East, which has quite frankly looked a little shaky outside of Washington, which I might get to later. I don't know, but that's kind of how I feel about it. Is you have some teams here that there's a lot of teams that we could see him going to. But I think ultimately it's going to be one of his buddies. So I don't know if it'll be Washington or Green Bay because, the Jets seem to be the overwhelming favorite. But whatever team gets him, they're going to
Jets
they're going to elevate themselves
favorite.
A lot.
It's just
I'm gonna throw a sneaky team out there. I'm gonna throw just a sneaky one out there, and the reason why I'm gonna throw this team out there is because not only the QB, the young wide receiver they just picked up in the draft, and the ever improving defense that they've continuously pushed out.
No.
The Buffalo Bills.
Ooh, that's good.
I was about to say, I saw that they were the 4 leading favorites are Jets first, Chiefs, Baltimore, then Buffalo.
I don't think he's going to Baltimore. I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he's going to get a bunch of catches. I mean, he's 32.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, it would be fun being in that offense with Baltimore because you'd win a bunch of games and everybody would, pull their punches. But like, I think like Zay Flowers was not involved last week whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to have those games that you're just not involved because Derrick Henry's got 200 yards rushing. You're just going to have to take a back seat and block.
It's literally because again, like you said, he's 32. You really don't know how many. He's got maybe like 2-3 years left. I mean, the team that he's going to go to a team that can, yes, win now, but if not now, then the 2 or 3 years. So that's like kind of my biggest gripe with the Jets is really how much does Aaron Rodgers have? Like, does he have, is he going to retire? If he retires before Adams, like after this year or whatever, Adams is kind of screwed with that. That's why I would say, Saints over the Jets. But again, Saints don't really have the cap space for it. Washington, I think, would be good. Just a young team. And right now, the way the rest of the division's going and just the way that the rest of the NFC in general is going, if, he went to Washington, that could be a legit threat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm talking like Super Bowl threat.
Oh, I agree. Shout out to the chat, World Wide Web. Appreciate you coming through, man. Never seen you in here before. Jeff coming through, our resident Saints fan, our brother right there. Torque, Dirk fan 07. Never seen you in here either. Appreciate you coming through, man. My fellow Oos, Grizz Marino. Damian Hernandez. Adams could be a good pickup since losing Tyreek Hill. Huh?
Miami don't need a receiver.
They got Jalen Waddle, who's a number 1 on his own.
I was about to say, you've got.
They just don't have a wide receiver. They don't have a.
They just don't have a quarterback right now in O-line. That wide receiver is not the problem there.
Yeah, Adams.
Also, that's too much. That's too much cap space in the wide receiver room between.
Yeah.
Adams, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill.